Hello everyone and welcome to the game 2 basically that we are going to show from the Champions Chester losers bracket of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, and the winner gets to play Magnus Carlsen in the grand final. Now I'm going to show you game 2 of the match Levon versus Alireza, but we're briefly going to show what happened in game 1. Let me just load up this fancy chess.com interface and just to see what happened. I decided to show you the second game, as first one was really an opposite color bishop endgame that featured some 60 moves only with the bishop and pawn. So I thought you guys would appreciate the second one more. But we are going to show what happened. As okay, the stakes are much higher in the second game, as one of the players has to play for a win. So it was a French defense where we had the winner variation, and Levon played this very nice bishop to a5 line. He didn't go for the standard bishop captures on c3, and Alireza immediately challenged it with pawn to b4. We have c captures on d4, which is funny, as this is called the Armenian line of the winner French, and Levon is Armenian. And now queen to g4. And look at this funny position. This bishop is hanging, this knight is hanging, the pawn on g7 is hanging. What can you play here? Well, you can play g6, but the top move is king to f8, and everyone plays it. Knight to b5, going after knight to d6. We have bishop to b6, and now knight to f3. You don't have to decide what you're going to do with the knight on b5 right away. Knight to c6, and bishop to b2. We have pawn to f6, and now knight b, not to d6, but knight b captures on d4. This is much more solid. Knight captures on e5, knight captures on e5, f captures, and knight captures on e6 with check. Bishop captures, queen captures, and okay, it looks like, a lot is happening. Maybe Alireza is attacking, maybe Levon is attacking, but after queen to f6, we simply trade and we go into an endgame. It was a pretty uneventful endgame. The bishop pair versus the strong center. c4, some moves in the center, castles queenside, rook c8 check, king b1, knight c3 check. One of the bishops comes off the board, rook d7, and now rook to c7. We have a trade, and we have this position where it's bishops of opposite colors, but the rooks are still in the game. c4, king went into the game, and it was pretty much an equal endgame up until this point where, yeah, this is the position where after pawn to g4, e4 was played by Levon, and now Alireza's position is either winning or close to winning, but he can definitely push. Levon should have captured on g4, but he played pawn to e4, and now g captures on f5, e captures on f3, and bishop captures on f3, and Levon thought, okay, I'm gonna grab one more pawn, and then it's a draw because the bishops are of opposite color, obviously. So he played rook g3, pinned the bishop, but now rook c3 defends the bishop, and now after king f6 attacking the pawn, Alireza just defended it with bishop to e4. And there's no other way to do it. You can trade, you cannot trade, but it doesn't matter. You just down 2 pawns. Levon traded, and Alireza was able to outmaneuver Levon. And okay, the position is objectively winning, and he was able to win and just push the pawns up the board as far as possible. And once he got to, let's say, this position, what was it, move 70 something, 72, it was in this position on move 72 that Levon Aronian resigned the game, as there was nothing more to be done here, because the bishop cannot control the f6 square and the b8 square. So, okay, the king and bishop hold it for now, but you will put a pawn on b7, and you will force Levon to either move the bishop from the defense of these 2 squares. If he goes this way, then you push this pawn. If he goes, let's say down the board to control f6, then you promote this pawn. And if the king moves, then of course you will be able to play f6, as the king no longer will be guarding the f6 square. So it was a very, very nice technical win by Alireza. It was, like I said, an equal game, but Alireza outplayed him and won very nicely. And now it's game 2. Levon has the white pieces, and he has to win. And this one we're going to look at more thoroughly. So we have pawn to e4, pawn to e5, and pawn to d3. Levon said, all right, if Magnus can play this against you and win every time, I'm going to do it as well. Knight to f6, we have pawn to f4 now, d6, and knight to f3. And we have this very, very weird setup that, well, it looks like either a King's Gambit was played, a declined King's Gambit, or a Vienna game, but if both black and white were playing weird moves. We have knight to c6, bishop to e2, g6, and now f captures on e5. There are some moves that where castles was played, but f captures on e5 is a new position. So this has never been played before, especially not in top level chess. And now as of move 6, we have a completely new game. So okay, d captures, knight to c3 and pawn to h6. We have bishop to e3, bishop to e6 and queen to d2, preparing to castle queenside. Perhaps we have knight to g4. Alireza says, all right, I really like your bishop on e3, and Levon says, I like it as well. Bishop to g1. We have pawn to h5. Knight to d1, trying to challenge that bishop, but also maybe to advance pawns in the center. All depends on what kind of a game it will be. And Alireza plays knight to d4, puts pressure on the knight and bishop, and we have pawn to h3. Here, if you capture right away, it's not as good because now this pawn is really stifling white's development. So yeah, that's pretty bad. So pawn to h3, chasing away the knight, and now bishop to h6. Alireza goes after Levon's queen. Queen to c3, the only move that doesn't lose on the spot. We have knight captures on f3 with check, bishop captures, and queen to h4 with check. Now, you can't really block with the bishop or knight because a simple trade followed by bishop to e3, and white's position is terrible. You have to play rook f1, black simply castles queenside, and I mean, look at this. This is just terrible. So after queen to h4, we have king to e2 and castles kingside. We have pawn to g3. You cannot capture the knight because the rook on h1 is hanging. But Levon says, all right, I can play g3. You move the queen and I will capture the knight. But that is exactly what Alireza was planning. Queen captures on g3. H captures on g4, and now bishop captures on g4. Now, H captures on g4 is objectively stronger, but remember, Levon is already losing the match, and only 2 games are being played, so he has to win this one. I'm going to show you why this is a bit stronger, because that's why we show games. We like to analyze. Rook captures on h6, and now g captures on f3 comes with check, king to d2. You will play queen captures on g1, queen captures on e5, threatening checkmate on h8, and now pawn to f6. You will give up the bishop on e6 with check. King g7 attacks the rook, and now look at this. Knight e3 attacks the queen, tries to give up the rook on a1 as well. Now he's gonna play queen f2 check, king c3, queen captures on e3, or the rook still hanging here, and now something like rook 8 to h1, and it looks like, okay, maybe you could play this for a win or something, because this looks very scary, but of course Alireza would gladly give up the queen here, because he's already up in the match, and well, if anyone is pushing here for the win, it's definitely black. So after h captures on g4, probably one of the reasons why Levon decided to go the other way around, or rather not Levon, why Alireza decided to go the other way around. Well, now that I think of it, it's hard to say why. Maybe just because that looked riskier. That's why he went for this. But yeah, h captures on g4 was the sort of the instant draw. But I mean, with 2.5 minutes on the clock, it's hard to say. Bishop captures on g4. Queen captures on g4 with check, king to e1, and now pawn to f5. This does look to be a little bit better for black, but if Levon plays it well, it's not. Bishop to c4 check, king to h8, and now knight to f2, attacking the queen, queen g2. It was better to bring the bishop into the game. This way, it's going to be very, very hard to develop this bishop. We have king to e2, pawn to f4, and now pawn to d4. Again, king to d2 is better, but it just looks really weird putting your king here, like pawn to f3, check, king c3, and it's an equal position, but yeah. Hard to decide for something like that. Pawn to d4, we have pawn to f3 with check, king to d3, and now queen to g5, threatening queen to d2 checkmate, king to c3, and now rook to f6, going for that rook to c6 to win the white queen. So knight to d3. Now if you go for this, then knight can be played to c5, and then I don't know what the plan was, like if b6, maybe there's some sort of an in-between d5 or something, but it doesn't look like a very good idea. Okay, but you have to play something. Instead, queen to d2 check was played, king to b3, and now rook to b6 with check. We have king to a4, and now rook to a6 with check, king to b3, and now Alireza played rook back to b6 with check, and after king to a4, he's not even trying to find a win with something like rook to c6 or pawn to f2. He's just happy with a draw, because the draw means that he wins the match. So Levon has no other choice but to play queen captures on a6. It's a very, very unfortunate, but I mean, if you want a chance at winning the match, you have to try it. Queen captures on c2 with check, b3, And now B captures on A6. And okay, Levon does have materialistically some compensation for the queen, but realistically, those pieces are not, working together. Knight captures on E5, going for knight captures on G6 check, but Alireza solves it instantly. Pawn to F2. Okay, knight captures on G6 check, king to H7, rook captures on H5, and now king captures on G6. We have... and he was in this position on move 35 that Levon Aronian resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So really nicely done by Alireza, taking down Levon with white in that beautiful opposite color bishop endgame, and now with black just completely outplaying him and sort of using trickery, that repeating of the position instead of going for the win. It's you're playing for the match, not for the game. That's why Levon had to play the weird queen captures an a6 move. But I mean, what are you gonna do? And here you have to resign because, well, the bishop here is hanging and the rook is hanging. You would have to give up the rook for the bishop, and then after captures, you play bishop h2, but still just f1 queen, and once white captures, you will pick up the bishop as well. And now it's queen and rook versus a rook. You're getting checkmated within the next few moves. So yeah, very nicely done by Alireza. A true masterclass, taking down Levon 2-0, and it will be Alireza versus Magnus in the grand final. Magnus defeated Alireza. We've seen it was a brutal match where first Alireza was winning and then he lost game 1, then Magnus was winning and then he lost game 2, then third game was a draw, and then Magnus was able to outplay Alireza in game 4. So very much looking forward to what will happen today, the day they will play the grand final, and I will keep you guys informed as usual. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Alireza seems like he's destroying everyone. Only Magnus can stop him, but how long can he keep stopping him? That is the question, and that we, hopefully will be answered today. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Grandmaster Uncle Moves Only, Ranko Djogashevic, Nishan Travi, GroznyChessFestival.org.gg, and Miguel Faber for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.